morning, Peter. Welcome. So Nick won't be here, so I would love to welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining this morning session. Georgina told me that she's happy and healthy. So that's my principle for this morning. How are you, Donna? I'm happy and healthy. Thank you so much for that. So I would love to introduce Georgina, our speaker for this morning. Georgina is a certified mindset and well-being coach with over 25 years of senior business roles and a lifetime of experience in meditation and self-discovery. So without further ado, Georgina, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Allow me to start maybe by introducing myself, since I've been introduced to some of you. I've actually been in Singapore for 18 years, and I have been vaccinated, which means I am over 45. Before becoming a mindset and wellbeing coach, I worked in the advertising and technology industry across both Europe and Asia for about 25 years. But throughout my life, I've always had a parallel track of personal development, which has taken me from the left side of the brain, sort of discovering about neuroscience. I've always been interested in psychology, and also more of mindfulness. I went to school when I got here in Asia, and I did 4 years studying Buddhism. So everything that you need to be a novice monk, I also learned the philosophy behind that. So for me, it's always been a journey about balancing two sides of myself, you know, my need for outer success, and then the other side, which is my need for inner peace. So that's a little bit about me. Today, we're going to talk about how to manage your self-talk. So we'll start off by going into a few insights around self-talk, and then I'll equip you with some powerful tools so that you can actually, well, more than manage it, you can actually ensure that you're always at your most creative, you're always at your most resourceful. And then I'm going to ask you to leave any questions that you have until the end, when we'll have a special Q&A session. But if you have any clarifying questions, just drop them in the chat, and I'm going to ask Donna if she wouldn't mind picking them up so that I can focus on you, or at least the 6 of you that I can see on my screen on the top of me. So, you know, you might need to wave, and Donna, maybe just pick that up for me. That would be great. So I would love to start off with a story. Have you ever heard of the story of the 2 wolves? Do I admit John Hancock, or do you, Donna?
I do. Just ignore the bling bling. By the way, Pauline raised her hand.
Yeah. Yes, Pauline.
No, I knew the story, that's all.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, brilliant. So it's the story of a Cherokee Indian, Native American Indian, who's telling his grandson a bedtime story. And the story is about 2 wolves that we all have inside us. And the first wolf is the negative wolf, right? It's all about anger and jealousy. This wolf is always snarling, it's always defensive, it's always resentful, it's feeds itself on greed and shame and insecurity and guilt and regret. So that's the negative wolf that's always howling and baying. And then the other wolf that we have is the positive wolf. And the positive wolf is all about love and joy and compassion, kindness and wisdom, empathy, curiosity, all of those different side of things. And the granddad says to his grandson, we all have these wolves inside us, and they are locked in an ongoing battle, a battle to the death, always fighting. And the grandson goes, whoa, that's so cool. Do I have that too, Granddad? And he goes, yes, even you have that. So he goes, which one's going to win? Which wolf is going to win? The grandfather says, well, that's very easy. Whichever one you feed. And I absolutely love that story, because I see so many truths in it. You know, where we put our attention grows. So we all have these 2 wolves inside us. And this is really the basis of what I want to talk to you about today. You know, the saboteur side of your brain, the self-critic, the negative wolf, and the positive side, which is your sage brain, where you have all of your empathy, curiosity, and resourcefulness. So I have a very, very loud negative wolf. It tells me things like, what do you know? You know, you're a fake, you're over your head, you're clueless, you know, go away, you imposter. It tells me things like, You will only be successful when you're happy. You'll only be happy when you're successful, when actually really it's the other way around. And, you know, things like you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. This is basically, when we hear these voices, it's just our ego talking, right? It's just our egoic narrative. And really, this ego side of ourselves, you can tell it from 3 different traits. Okay, so the first one is it's all based on judgment. Judgment of ourselves, judgment of others, and judgment of the situation. So the judgment of ourselves, you're not good enough. What do you know? Judgment of others. Well, you know, I better not submit this piece of work unless it's perfect. Otherwise, I'm going to discredit myself, you know. Or judgment of the situation. I will only be happy if I'm successful. Or it's a hard world out there. I have to play hard, you know. So I don't know if you relate to any of these. Maybe just show of hands if some of these sound familiar for your own inner critic. I'm happy to put my own hand up there. Yeah, great. So actually these 2 parts, you know, the 2 wolves relate to 2 different parts of our brain. And indulge me if I go into the neuroscience a little bit, because for the first 5 years of your life, imagine you're downloading data. You're downloading everybody else's data about how you see the world, about this is a cup, this is a pen, this is me, this is who I am, this is who I am in relation to you, this is who I am in relation to the world. And we download it without filtering it, we download it without questioning it. So essentially, we're running other people's programs. Like it or not, the programs that we're running are our caregivers, our parents, our teachers, our friends' parents. And sometimes we interpret it through the lens of a 3-year-old child or a 5-year-old child, and they don't always have the bigger picture. So me as a 5-year-old, my dad was always working. I couldn't get his attention for love nor money. And he'd come out of the study at the end of the day and he would just want to relax. He was literally just trying to diffuse. And no matter how much I tried to talk to him, I couldn't get through. So, you know, my father was on a pedestal. There couldn't be anything wrong with him. My safety, my well-being was in his hands. So then there therefore had to be something wrong with me. You know, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't being noticed. So that actually became a key driver for me. I'm a hyperachiever because I always wanted to notice. I always had to stand out. I always had to compete, you know, just to get noticed, just to get that attention. And that was my 5-year-old brain telling me that. Actually, in reality, it had nothing to do with me. My dad just had a lot of work and he would come out the office and he just needs some time to sort of come down a level. But in my own mind, it formed who I am. I had my saboteurs start to tell me, if you want to be noticed, this is how you need to behave. So when you're growing, the first 5 years of your life, all of that data goes into the back of your brain, into your hindbrain, okay? And the amazing thing about that is that it allows us to habituate our behavior, right? The fact that you can drive a car and sing a song and eat crisps all at the same time is because it's behavior that is in the back of your brain. You don't even need to think twice about it, right? Whereas the front of your brain, your consciousness, if you had to sort of think about every single time you ran and picked up a foot, you know, you wouldn't go anywhere. Yeah. So the back of your brain is really all about survival. I want you to imagine you're walking down the road and you see a pipe, like a hose pipe, right? And your brain, before you even realize it, thinks, could this be a snake? You get an amygdala hijack and you've got adrenaline coursing through your body, right? And then you see it, it goes into the back of your brain, it catalogs through its database, it identifies it. It's only a hose pipe, you know, it's only just a water sprinkler. And then you can relax, but it's too late. You're already in fight or flight. Now, the thing is, we are no longer on the African plains, but our body does not know that. Our body is still in primate mode. It still gets triggered by threats. It's wired to threats. So it sees threats in status, it sees threats in uncertainty, it sees threats in relatedness or anything to do with unfairness. And hello, you know, you've been on the planet with me this last year and a half. It's all threat, 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 status, uncertainty, unfairness, every single time you check the news. And just to demonstrate this point, you know, I want you to think of a moment recently, or maybe not even recently, where you have felt threatened, either by your status or something being unfair or through uncertainty. Maybe just put your mind there. Yeah, can you feel it? And then just notice that even the story about the threat puts your body and your mind into an emotional and a physical response. You can't help it. We are hardwired to threat. So that's where the negative wolf lives. It's all about protecting you. And all of these aspects that we have within us, this capacity for judgment, this capacity for self-sabotage, actually comes as a positive to help you survive. Now, the thing is about your survivor brain is it's very good for motivating you, but it's very terrible at making you happy. You know, it's like, imagine there's a hot stove. You put your hand on the hot stove. Great, data received. Don't put my hand in the fire. It will get burned. But what our inner critic does is it just keeps our hand on the hot stove. It wakes us up in the middle of the night with anxiety. Oh my God, what did I say today? Was that email correct? Oh my God, did it say, you know, the story, the narrative circuitry. So the back part of your brain is all about survival mode. That's where your saboteurs live. Whereas the front of your brain, that develops, your prefrontal cortex, that comes online when you're about 12 years old. And that's the space of your mind where all of your positive emotions are kept. It's the space where you go to, where you're peaceful, you're calm, you're clear-headed. It allows the big picture view of things. It allows empathy. It's almost like that meta state where you're able to observe your own inner critic from somewhere else witnessing it, right? Where you're able to see the programs and the patterns that you're running. You're able to see the inner critic and the emotional and the physical response that happens and go, okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting. What's happening? What's behind that? Or what can I do to move past that, right? So when we move into our prefrontal cortex, which I'm going to call our sage brain, we're able to start creating choice. Do I want to be permanently reactive and triggered? Or do I want to be big picture and proactive? So the question then becomes, brilliant, I want to be sage mind. How do I switch? Yeah, so, or how do I stop this constant rumination of my ego and judgment and that narrative circuitry that's constantly priming me for a fight or justifying my position, right? So there's different ways that you can do it, right? How to switch off that narrative circuitry. Some people do it through substance abuse, not recommended. Others do it through sport, very recommended. The idea is, you know, and yoga as well. When you do sports, you position your mind into your body. Same with yoga. When you're actually connected into your body exists in only one time period, that's now. When you're running and your heart rate's going, or you're on your bike, you're focused, you're in the moment now. You're not in the anxiety of the future and all your have-tos or your need-tos, or you're not in the regret or the analysis of the past, neither of which actually exist except for concepts in your mind. Your body only exists in the present. That's why when you do yoga, they talk about vritti. Vritti is the constant narrative grind. And when you still your mind and you breathe and you put your focus on your body, it just switches it off. Your body only exists in the present. So your body is a really powerful tool to help you ground yourself and center yourself in the moment and switch off all of that self-talk, that critical self-talk. And when you do, you find peace, you feel luminosity. I'm a lifelong practitioner of meditation. I absolutely love it, because for me, it's just a way of just switching off and reconnecting to this inner stillness. I don't know if you can relate to that, but there is another technique which I want to talk to you about today that I've actually found incredibly powerful in terms of switching off the negative wolf, switching off the negative narrative. And it's called positive intelligence. And it's something that I came across last year. and I'm being certified as a positive intelligence course, or as a positive intelligence coach at the moment, because what I've found is, whilst meditation has been really, really helpful in helping me show up in a certain way during the day and being calm and present, it doesn't always help me when I'm being triggered in the moment. Now, my oldest daughter, is severe ADHD. She is really, really confrontational. She pushes my buttons all over the place. She has been such an inspiration for me to constantly develop myself. But oh my God, I could go from patient into the Hulk, just like this. And so my lifelong quest has been, if I can just slow down that me hulking out by half a second, it's worth everything, which is why I went into study Buddhism for 4 years, why I went into study applied meditation, because I wanted to do that. Now, positive intelligence, you don't need to have the basis of meditation. You don't need to have studied any neuroscience. It's actually probably the most impactful, immediate framework that anyone can use. And it's allows me to just switch into that front brain whenever I'm triggered in the moment. That's what I wanted to share with you today. So I don't know if you received a message from Donna yesterday, and it had a link inside to a positive intelligence survey, which was about meeting your negative wolf. It's called Meet Your Saboteurs. Did any of you have a chance to do your saboteur survey? I can't see you all, but what I'll do is I'll drop you a link in the chat box afterwards, and I strongly recommend you do it, because it's absolutely fascinating. And what positive intelligence does is, it's actually based around the concept of mental fitness, right? So our capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset, right, rather than a negative mindset. And when we're able to do that, the impact is peak performance, it's peace of mind and well-being, and it's all about building better relationships, not just with us, others, but also with ourselves. So for me, this is particularly brilliant, because it satisfies my need for outer success, peak performance, and inner peace, stillness of mind. So my mind isn't like a bag of frogs all the time. It's calm, it's focused, it's present. I'm like a ninja. I'm able to sort of get clear focus whenever I need to. And this was actually developed by combining a load of different science and disciplines. So it actually, I won't go too much into the various details, but it's a mixture of positive psychology, neuroscience, cognitive behavioral therapy, and sports psychology as well. And it was tested amongst hundreds and hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. It was tested against a massive swathe of Stanford students. The guy who developed it is actually a Stanford professor. It was tested against world-class athletes and across 500,000 participants in 50 countries. So if you're interested in finding out more, I'll put the link to the book as well at the end. And there's a TED talk as well. I highly recommend you go and look into it. And basically what they did is they looked at our negative self-talk, and they used factor analysis to distill it down into 10 key saboteurs, right? 10 different tendencies that we have to beat ourselves up or to get in our own way, okay? And when I talk about factor analysis, imagine you can have thousands and thousands of colors from just 3 different primary colors. I think it's blue, red, and yellow, right? So with these 10 saboteurs, you combine them all together, and you can have, pretty much every single negative narrative that you've got going through your. So I'd like to introduce you to my saboteurs. They are a rowdy bunch, but I'm going to show you what it would look like if you take the saboteur test and the sort of results that you're going to get. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. So I'm not sure how to put it onto screen save, because this is, there we go, not screen save, share screen. But can you see it like this? Just ignore whatever's on this side. Okay, so there is one saboteur who's not in here because he's universal. We all have him, and that's the judge, right? The judge is the master saboteur. He judges everything all the time. And in fact, whenever we look at the world, think about it, we judge absolutely everything. It's either good, it's either bad, or it's meh. indifferent. Our mind can't help but judge. But when the judge goes in overdrive, is constantly critical, it's constantly finding faults, constantly, you know, talking to us in a way that if anybody else talked to us in that way, we'd punch them on the nose, you know, but it's okay for us to do it to ourselves, isn't it? No. So the judge is constantly judging ourselves, other people, and also the world around us. So then my top one is the controller. As its name implies, it likes to control everything. It doesn't like to let go or to surrender because that feels unsafe. So safety is found in controlling. There's a belief in there that if I'm able to control everything around me, then my world is safe, it's secure. The next one is the hyperachiever. That is really, it's great. It motivates me to constantly push myself, but a hyperachiever is a tough one because we climb a mountain and we get halfway, and instead of taking a breath and looking around and enjoying the view and going, well done, look how far I've come, look how beautiful the view is, we're constantly looking up at the next level, constantly climbing. There's very little satisfaction. And so there's 10 of them. You've got the stickler, who's the perfectionist, the pleaser. Hyper-rationals are people who default to their left brain and logic because it's safer than emotions, right? So people who are hyper-rational can sometimes have a slightly myopic view of the world. Restless. The restless saboteur constantly means that you need to have stimulation. You're constantly needing to find new things. So the restless is jack of all trades, but master of none. The avoider is, if any of you are procrastinators, this is your avoider saboteur, right? It's easier to just hide away than have that confrontation or to show up in a way where you will be judged by others. It's all about hiding. And the hypervigilant is catastrophizer. Oh my God, if I do that, then the world, you know, the sky will fall on my head, my business will collapse, everything will go as badly as it can. So the hypervigilant is a safety precaution about always having to be 3 steps ahead of where you are so that you sweep up any threats, because it's an unsafe world out there. And then the victim, as its name professes, is really about giving your power to other people and allowing them to be responsible for your life. And then whatever happens, it's your way of getting attention from other people. It's actually it's a mechanism to get attention. So those are the 10 different saboteurs that you get, and the ranking shows really how strong and powerful they are, right? So generally we would look at the ones above 5, and the more you're able to work on your saboteurs, you're going to lessen their control over you, because the important thing to know is you are not your saboteurs. They are not you. They are just your mind's tendency to defend itself. And when we're able to appreciate and not identify with our saboteurs, then we can step away. We could do it, you know, we could start to notice, oh, there we go. There's the controller. The controller tells me that if I don't do this, it won't get done, you know, and that it's safer for me to do that. If I'm able to do that, and then I don't indulge in the narrative of, I don't get swept up in the I or the ego, the story around having to control, then I'm able to step back and start noticing the patterns, start noticing the narrative in my own mind. So this is a quick overview. When you do the report, when you do the survey, you'll get emailed a report, and it will go into detail. Okay, it will tell you the characteristics of all of your saboteurs. It will give you a flavor of the various thoughts behind that. And I don't think you can see the feelings, but it's basically, can I do this? Will that work? No, it won't. And it talks about how these saboteurs come to be. It talks about its protective mechanism for you. So that's a very quick view of the saboteurs that you have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but I can come back to this at the end if you're interested. Okay. So mental fitness is all about strengthening 3 core muscles. Okay. 3 core muscles, so that you're able to have that peace of mind. You're able to have that peak performance. You're able to be mentally fit. So the first one is your saboteur interceptor, right? Notice when your saboteur arises, okay? And as I mentioned, the saboteur will motivate you through negative emotions: fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity, right? So whenever you notice those negative emotions, that's a saboteur. And just call it out. There's my judge. Judgment is happening. Not, oh my God, I'm judging. I'm a bad person. Oh my God, I've messed up again. You know, and then we go into the ego narrative, and it's just our judge kicking our backside. Again, just notice, there's the judge. Judge is telling me this, judge is telling me that. I don't have to attach to it, right? And as I mentioned, sometimes they've got a positive intention for us, but in hyperdrive, they aren't good for us. Our saboteurs just get in our way. They don't generate ongoing happiness. So the second muscle that we need to activate, so we've got our saboteur interceptor. I shouldn't have done that. I had my injection 2 days ago. The second muscle that we need to work on is our sage brain, right? This is the prefrontal cortex. And the perspective of our sage brain is that every outcome and every circumstance can be seen and turned into a gift or an opportunity. So I don't know if you've heard the old Taoist story about the farmer and the stallion, but this is a great example of how everything is neutral. It can be bad or it can be good, right? Which means if it can be either, you have the choice, right? So there's a story of an old farmer, and one day a stallion just comes trotting into his field, and it's a beautiful stallion. It's a pedigree, and he's delighted. So he stables the stallion, and all of his neighbors come around, and they say, "That's amazing. How did you do that? You must be so happy. You've got a stallion." And the farmer, who's a very wise old man, says, "Maybe." And the neighbors think that's a bit of a funny response, but okay, they're kind of used to the eccentricity of his neighbor. And the next day, his son is trying to tame this stallion, and he gets kicked and hobbled. And the neighbors come over and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, my commiserations. Who's going to go and, tend to your fields? You must be devastated. Your son is injured." And this very wise old farmer, he says, "Maybe." And then the next day, the army comes through, and they're conscripting all the young men. And because the son is hobbled, he has to stay at home. And the neighbors come around and they say, "You must be so happy." And the farmer says, "Maybe." I could go on for hours. It's actually a really, really long story, but you get the point. You know, who knows? So the sage view is that everything is neutral. You can turn absolutely anything into a gift or an opportunity, right? And when you're able to activate your sage brain, you're able to activate your prefrontal cortex. You go to a space where you are clear-headed, where you're focused, you have that big picture, where you have empathy, you have perspective. And coming from that place, you do generate your highest success because you're thinking in a lateral way. You're thinking in a creative and a resourceful way, and you're noticing things that you would never have done before. So it generates your highest success, and it's all about your sustained happiness. So when you look at these two powerful wolves that are fighting, you've got your saboteurs and telling you that everything is bad, everything is bad. And then you've got your sage brain that is telling you everything is a gift. Which perspective is true? And the answer is actually just like my story at the very beginning. It's whichever one you feed, right? They're both a self-fulfilling prophecy. You want to believe bad things will happen. They will happen because your mind will create the actions and the mindset that will create those results, right? Whereas if you believe everything is a gift and that it's a kind world out there, you will show up differently. You will show up with the mindset that is aligned with that. You will be more attuned to the opportunities that are out there that will allow you to tap into them. You will be more generous, and when you're generous, just from the fact of mirror neurons, which means your behavior is infectious, right? Think about it. If you put your fist out and somebody puts their fist out and you push, they will always push back. Similarly, if you smile at someone walking down the street, they respond in kind. mirror neurons, right? So both perspectives are true. It comes down to which one do you want to choose. Now, I want to choose my sage each and every time. I want happiness and well-being. I want peak performance, you know. My whole life is about growing to my full potential. And that's my hyperachiever in me as well, because anything less is unacceptable. Shh, judge, stop, calm myself down. So how do we get to, you know, we're building both of our muscles, right? So how do we always switch from the saboteur muscle to our sage muscle? Well, we do it by boosting our self-command muscle. And our self-command muscle builds all that wisdom of our body, which is only here in the present time, here and now. So we do something called PQ reps, right? PQ stands for positive intelligence. You've heard of IQ, which is, you know, your intelligence quotient. You've heard of EQ, which is your emotional quotient. This is your PQ, your positive intelligence quotient. It's your ability to switch from a negative mindset into a positive mindset at will, okay? And that can be measured. You can actually go and take your PQ muscle test on the positive intelligence website that I'll send to you later. So I'm going to show you how we can switch, and we're going to do it now, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to take your thumb and your finger together. This is the easiest exercise. It takes 10 seconds. And I'm going to invite you to shut your eyes, okay? And as gently as possible, I want you to rub your fingers together, your thumb and forefinger together. And I want you to notice the exquisite sensations of contact. Actually see if you can feel the ridges of both fingers. And you can open your eyes now. Just in the space of 10 seconds, the equivalent of 3 short breaths, you've actually activated your prefrontal cortex. And it works because it stops you focusing your energy on the back of your brain. It centers your mind into the moment. And when you do that, your sage brain, your prefrontal cortex comes online automatically in the space of 3 breaths. And the amazing thing about this is it's versatile. You can do it anytime, you can do it anywhere. You could do it in a boardroom meeting below the table. Or if you're exhausted in between non-stop meetings, right? Just take a moment to do this. You can do other techniques as well. So for example, using your senses. What can you hear in the foreground? What can you hear in the background? What can you smell? What can you taste? And the more that you do this, the more you build your muscle, your sage muscle. So the more time you can spend doing these PQ reps, anchoring into your body, the stronger that's going to be. And the interesting thing is, over the course of 6 weeks, they've been tracking via MRI scans the difference in your brain when you start to do these positive intelligence exercises. And they found atrophy in parts of your back brain, and they found an increase in the gray cells in the front of your brain. So it actually does matter. It does work really, really powerfully. And I've found that this has just been so incredibly powerful when I'm getting triggered by my daughter. 3 breaths, I'll do this, and all of a sudden, I'm not taking everything personally. I'm able to see exactly what's happening. And I've been able to lean into it in a way that has frustrated the heck out of my daughter, because she's like, why aren't you reacting anymore? Why aren't you, I'm pushing your buttons, why aren't you reacting? And from that perspective, I've been able to go 5 levels deeper with my daughter. It has been amazing. So I highly recommend you to try this. So the guy who developed positive intelligence had a background in IT and a background in neuroscience and psychology. He sees this almost as an operating system, right? It's a really simple operating system. You go from back brain, you do PQ reps, you go to front brain, you can apply it to anything. You could apply it to work, you can apply it to personal development, you can apply it to relationships, you can apply it to everything, right? You can see the world through saboteurs and sages. When you're in confrontation, saboteur to saboteur, how do I switch into my sage mode and influence the other person? It's a really interesting way of looking at the world. And it's such a simple operating system. And these are the key things to remember when you always want to be in your sage mind. Here's what you need to do. So the first step is, if you're feeling a negative emotion, stop. You're in saboteur mode. Just notice it. Call it out. There's the pleaser, right? The next step, number 2, do some PQ reps to quieten your saboteur mind and activate your sage. 10 seconds. Who can't afford 10 seconds? Okay, that will center you. And then step 3 is you assume the sage perspective that absolutely everything can be converted into a gift or an opportunity. And from there, you generate that gift by using your sage powers, such as empathy, curiosity, creativity, calm, clear-headed action. You know, what is really happening here? What is the best next steps for me? What is the other person feeling that I'm reacting to? Right? It allows you to go into a meta state where you can see everything from above, rather than being in the mosh pit fighting for survival. So you got that? If you're feeling a negative emotion, stop, do your PQ reps, activate your sage brain, and come from that space of curiosity, empathy, clear-headed action. So, you know, I'm expecting some saboteurs out there to be judging this and going, yeah, sounds a bit too easy. You know, is it really possible to just shift from saboteur to sage? You know, so easy. You know, is it possible even in tough challenges? And the answer is yes, absolutely, 100%. Try it out. Take it for a test drive. I encourage you. Absolutely possible. But the speed and the depth of that shift depends on your mental muscles that you're developing, your own mental fitness. And the idea is that we go from mentally unfit or mentally middling to high levels of fitness. And they say that generally the ratio of positive sage thoughts to negative saboteur thoughts needs to be 75%, because your saboteurs are so strong, they're so wired to threat within your body that they are louder, they shout louder. So we need to get our mental fitness up to a level of 75, our PQ fitness up to a level of 75%, where things just naturally fall into place. I'll give you a perfect example, right? You go on holiday, you chill out. Finally, you chill out. You're sick for the first 2 days. And then you chill out, you relax, you read your book, and you have a great time. You're in flow, and then you come back, and that first week of work, everything just falls into place. All the buses arrive on time. Everything is just perfect. It's because your sage mind is in full flow. You're activating with a PQ level that is high. And so everything, serendipity is just always happening because you're constantly in that sage mind. And most of us realistically, in front of our computers all the day, constantly grinding, we're in saboteur, we're in a lower PQ mental fitness. So we really need to go to the gym, we need to practice, we need to get our PQ muscles up. We need to constantly keep doing the exercises where we're noticing we're getting triggered and we take action. Now, they do say that you need to do this for throughout the course of the day. They could say if you can do 100 PQ reps, you're going to be sorted. Space of 6 weeks, you're going to be a Jedi. You're going to be a PQ master black belt, right? 100, it sounds a lot, doesn't it? It's only 15 minutes, right? And the way that you can remember to do it is that every single time you notice a negative thought, you do it. I can guarantee you, you know, if you do it every single time a negative thought arises, you'll be doing it more than 100 times, right? The other thing that the book tells us is to use things like going for toilet breaks as a reminder, because they are consistently spaced throughout the day and sometimes into the night, you know, so you can actually do the, you know, washing your hands or drying your hands and using those tactile sensations as a reminder to activate your sage brain. Yeah. So that in brief is a summary of the positive intelligence framework. And what you'll do when you get the report is you're going to get some insights as to who your key saboteurs are, right? And if you start to activate your sage brain, you're going to start to also get some insights as to how they're affecting you, how they're tripping you up in your daily life, how they're impacting your relationships, right? You're going to be getting lots and lots of insights. But the real breakthrough happens through creating lasting positive change. And only 20% of that is based on insight. The other 80% is on building that mental muscle, right? So that's where we come in as coaches. If you have a coach, great. Work with them on positive intelligence, work with building that insight, work with them also on developing that 80% mental muscle. And what I'll do now is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share some links with you, yeah, so that you can go in and you can access positive intelligence. Okay, can you all see? Okay. So this is the free Saboteur test, positiveintelligence.com. And you can also take your PQ score as well. You can see how you rank on that. And the idea is the more you train, the more you build your muscle, the more you're able to actually reduce the reactivity that you have to your saboteurs, right? I've also put in some contact details for me. If you would like to have a chat, you can reach me through my website. I've got a chat function on there. And, you know, come and have a chat with me. Come and explore. If you have any questions about positive intelligence, or you want to do the positive intelligence program, you'll see that on the website, the positive intelligence website. I'm actually approved to do that for you if you want to, or if you just want to come and chat and find out a bit more. I also have a function on my website that you can book a 90-minute session with me if you want to have a powerful coaching session. And that's really about discovering how your saboteurs play up in your life and creating a more sage perspective, more sage actions and mindsets to help you get to where it is that you want to go. Now, I do want to promise you at this stage, this isn't going to be me hounding you for sales. This is an invitation to connect from my sage mind to your sage mind. So please feel free to take me up on it. There's my scheduler. You can book me as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy these now, and I'm going to drop these into the chat group. Oh, I'm not going to do that until I stop sharing because I can't access it. Okay. So that brings me to the end of my talk. Donna, do you want me to share the QR code now or at the end?
Now, please. Thank you so much,
Okay, here we
Georgina.
go. Here is the QR code. I think you all know what to do with that.
Right. So everyone, please take your 30 seconds to give us the feedback by scanning the QR code. And Georgina, awesome. I love your
Yes,
presentation.
Thank you.
And after you finish with your feedback, feel free to unmute yourself or just type your questions on the chat. Georgina will be super happy to address your questions. Thanks.
I feel a bit funny rating myself.
All right. If all done, feel free to unmute yourself. Who will be the first one to ask a question to Georgina, please?
Hi, Georgina. It's Fresi here.
Hi, Fresi.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for sharing. It's really interesting. I'm always amazed by how our brain works and what we can do to further improve ourselves. So my question is more on when taking the test, like how far is the interval before you can see the difference? Do you have to take the same survey again and then possibly just see a difference in there, or how does that look like?
Yeah, I love that question. So there's two surveys that you could take. The first one is your saboteurs, and you probably only really need to take that once because you will always have the same cast showing up. Now, their scores might get lower, but really that's the main thing. We just want to put our attention on the top 3 or 4, however many are over the 5 threshold, and work on those. The score that we want to constantly look at lowering is or hiring actually is our PQ score. So that's our ability to switch into sage mode and see things positively rather than negatively. So you might start and your first PQ score might be a 50, right? You want to be pushing that up to 75 and beyond. And if you do that, there is a positive intelligence course. Is actually, if you go onto the positive intelligence website, there is an app that you can download, and it takes you through a 6-week course of training, right? So it actually helps you check in the morning, and you do a 2-minute audio. It will set up the focus of the day. It could focus on your various saboteurs. It could focus on various sage powers. And then you will check in 3 times of the day, and you will do those exercises, and it will help build that muscle. And the idea is, at the end of those 6 weeks, your score, your PQ score, should be above 75. Yeah. So that's the one that you're constantly looking at. And just so that you know, if you go onto the website and you see the Positive Intelligence app and you download it, it's a $1,000 US charge to unlock it. So don't go do that. If you're interested, because I'm a coach, I have access to it, that I can then share with my clients or share with people who want to go on that course. So don't spend $1,000. You don't need to. Just come have a chat with me. Yeah.
Thank you. And I took the surveys. It's really interesting results.
Oh, really? Did you do the Saboteur or the PQ rep survey?
The Saboteur. So I'll do the PQ survey later. But the Saboteur results are really high. And if you're talking about threshold of 5, I'm way over.
Yep, me too. I think most of us are. Yeah. What was your highest score, Tracy?
Let me double check. I remember it was controller.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
My first controller score was actually a 9.4. And you can see it's down. You know, I took that second one again halfway through my my program, and it was down to an 8.8. Yeah.
Yeah.
Controller and stickler combined, which is mine, is absolutely exhausting. Our saboteurs, you can tell just by the level of exhaustion they give us. Yeah, and the resistance create.
Totally. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else take the saboteur test? Yeah, you did, Pauline?
Yeah.
Do you have any thought?
Yeah, I took it, but